Well, I met her in Smoky Mountain, and she was very friendly. She didn't come up to me and speak to me. I went up to her because she was so. I knew she would be so green. She wouldn't know the protocol. Not that she was like snubbing anybody, but I went up and introduced myself and to Chris. They're very friendly, and of course they knew who I was. But I don't think Tammy was the fan that Chris was. Chris was the fan between the two of them. So when she got an opportunity to shine, because she was a good-looking girl, young, she was about 19, and when he put her out there, she was the antithesis, I like that word, of a lot of managers because they're usually male and kind of older, but she was young, a good-looking girl, and she got over.
When I knew Sunny, she was probably in her 20s, early 20s, just immature, silly girl. And I didn't talk to her that much because I couldn't correlate or relate to her personality. I was interested in Chris and what we got to do in the ring. It's business. She would come off a little bit, like, don't do that, just a 19-year-old girl that's 22. Later in years, as she got worse and Chris passed, she completely kayfabed me. You would think there's a bond there. When you do a program with somebody like Orndorff and Hogan, there's something there. Rick Martel, Tony Gurria, Pedro Morales. I'm using people that they had this, they did a program or an angle that was phenomenal. I'm sure a good one is Shane McMahon and Kurt Angle. Mm-hmm. They had chemistry and they did some business. I'm looking at it. There was no bond there. She could care less. She was probably, I think she was inebriated and just didn't know who I was. And then all of a sudden she'd say hello to me or something. But she wasn't the same girl. And she was older and she's in her 40s. And it's progressively been a livid train wreck for her.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
She kept trying to work her way in and work her way in. Finally, one day, bam, her and Skip are in the back with the click. So we was all talking and we saying, well, she finally found her way back there and blah, blah, blah. That lasted about 3 days, 4 days, because one day we got on the bus to leave wherever we were going to. Like if we were in Munich, we'd stay in Munich and make the show the next day. That's where we'd end up the night before. And little Miss Sunny wasn't there. And we said, where is she? Where is she? And somebody said, well, that's when she had to leave the European tour early. Because, when you eat, say you eat the day before and you leave a little box and you write on it what you want, they would fill that for you. And when you left that night, you could just take it with you and go back to your room and eat it. That's your meal for the night. Well, somebody tampered with her little meal box because we all knew what they did to it, right?
May have laid a little stink pickle.
Yeah, they laid one in there, and I heard she picked it up, went back to the room, and she's making all these long distance calls. Oh, yes, I'm in Munich and we're going to Paris tomorrow and we're doing all this stuff. Then she looked down in her noodles or whatever she had, and there's a little nugget. And she went nuts. And the first person she called is, what was that lady we was talking about? Lisa
Wolf.
She called Lisa Wolf. And Lisa was just appalled at these boys, as she called them, or whoever would do this to her, and immediately retracted her from the tour. She left that morning, the night after. As soon as the plane went out, they booked her on it and got her back. And nobody ever knew who did that, except me. I mean, but it wasn't for years and years and years I didn't even know who did it because they didn't roll over on each other. Who do you think did it?
Oh, I've heard. Well, I think it was Sean Waltman.
You're correct. It was Sean Waltman.
How did you
He did
find
it.
out?
Finally, one day he broke down and told me. I saw him somewhere, and I says, and I brought the story up, and I said, brother, you got to help me out here. Listen, hell, I'm getting old now, so I need to know the answer to this before I fall over and die of a heart attack. Did you do that? And he went, yeah, I did it. He wanted to admit it anyway, but but see, if he'd admitted it right up front, they'd have fired him. They'd have had to. And none of the other guys were going to own up to doing it. They were just glad it got done. But they were going to show little Sonny that she might want to be in the clique, but could she hang with them? Because she went back there and she started acting stupid. And they said, all right, she's gone. Kick her out.
Sonny gets on the bus. Now, Scott and Kevin both have signed with WCW. They're filling their dates in that they didn't have to fill in. They're doing us a favor. So if they're late for the bus, who cares? We got nothing else to do. We got no internet. We got no cell phones. We got nothing to do. All we're doing is either wait at the place we're going or we're going to wait on the bus there. So they were late one morning. No one cared. But Sonny walked on and told George Steele in front of everybody. She said, hey, Scott and Kevin and a bunch of those guys, she listed all the names. She said they were out last night and they were late for the bus yesterday, or 2 nights ago. They're late for the bus yesterday. I missed my tanning. I missed my gym session.
That's right.
And she's sitting there just telling on them. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at Briscoe, and I said, this isn't going to end well. I promise you. I don't know what's going to happen, but this does not end well. Because
she stews them off.
Stews every one of them.
In front of George.
Right to George in the front of the bus, in front of everybody. She was really mad about the fact that she didn't get to do what she wanted to do in her normal day because these guys were late to bus. Surprise, surprise. A bunch of young guys without much responsibility and a little bit too much money and TV time are not responsible to get on a bus on time. We all did it. Everybody did it. It wasn't a big deal. No one got mad about it, but Sonny decided to talk to George about it. And then a few days later, that's when that's when a mysterious element showed up in her take-home food. She had ridiculous talent. She was incredibly talented. She was a beautiful young lady.
She's too stupid to realize it.
She could talk.
Who was advising her? Nobody.
I don't know if Candido was or who was. I don't know. I mean, she was just constantly in battles with different guys when I was there. I didn't have much dealing with her. She was wonderful to me, but I didn't work with her. I didn't know anything, didn't have any real contact with her.
Well,
she seemed very nice. She seemed very nice to me, but I could, she was like oil and water with a bunch of guys.
Oh boy. A bunch of guys. But anyway,
but she was probably the first diva, right?
Probably she was the first diva. I guess
she was beautiful. She was one of these, got all these downloads when they first had the internet, and she could talk. I mean, she was really talented.
Yeah, disappointing. Another story you think about was tremendous beauty, smart, I thought, but then just took that wrong road. Things didn't work out for her, and she made bad choices, man, really bad choices.
Tammy Sytch, how many fights did she start in ECW?
Oh, dude, I was in the back of a limo. It was people flew us down to Texas. It wasn't like a Terry Funk thing. It was somewhere else. So they had a limo. Me, Chris, her, Mil Mascaras, and fucking Manny Fernandez. We're in the limo and those two start fighting. She starts throwing beer bottles. Fucking those two are talking and shit like that. I'm like, oh my God, fucking stop this bitch. Hey, I know some crazy shit too.
Tammy she was a little sluttish. I mean, she was beginning down that route, but it's hard to see a little girl, 18, 19 years old, pretty girl, get abused, and I won't say get abused willingly abused, I would think, because she went along with it. And a lot of times she probably instigated it. And I mean, when he would go to the ring or she wasn't needed, or she would go and have a little dalliance with somebody else in the back. I've always thought that Chris knew it, but never let on that he knew it. I think even his brother had said that.
It definitely bothered him. As far as I know, it really bothered Chris. But yeah, as you said, he wouldn't really let on for the sake of the relationship.
For the sake of his relationship with her?
Yes.
Or the relationship with him in WWE or F?
Well, I think this was going on in ECW. This had been going. It wasn't like exclusive WWF. I'll give you a couple more. And this is from Tammy herself. She said that she had also had a brief dalliance with Davey Boy Smith. And in the Brian Pillman book, Crazy Like a Fox, I think Mark Madden gives the story that he was on the phone with Brian and Tammy, Brian Pillman and Tammy Sytch while they were at it, and they were both saying something like, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this," while doing that at the same time. Unbelievable. And there's so many other rumors going out there that obviously Tammy disagrees with.
Smoky Mountain too.
Yeah.
And young girls learn this early. They know if their careers or whatever they wanted to do could be enhanced by a guy if they acted a certain way. Yeah, she knew exactly what she was doing.
I tell people I knew Tammy before tits and with tits. When I met her, man, she's this little young 21-year-old girl. I saw certain things, and you got to be quiet about. And I'm like, you kind of know something's going on. But I didn't personally have any problems with her because I didn't interact with her a whole lot. A couple of times when I was doing the kendo thing, I'd be in a locker room in the hillside, and so I'd be around her there. I had went through a home or the apartment and eaten dinner a couple of times with them. She wasn't a problem for me because sometimes I think you teach people how to treat you. And I never let her treat me in a disrespectful way. I was a little bit older, and I try to be professional to her in a manner that I respect for Chris. This is where the line's drawn, So now I know a lot of other things about her, but just like in my first book there. If I didn't go in there and write and shit on people, you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to be the one to shit on her and kind of, if I knew someone's doing drugs, well, that's their fucking issue. That's their problem. I'm not going to be one talking trash about it or writing about it. Same thing with affairs. If I knew guys were fucking around or what, it's not my place to go and tell the wives or nothing like that. I'm not going to snitch them out or stooge them out. So certain things I saw about her and knew about her were, that's their deal, not mine. I'm not going to be the one to fuck it up. So,
Is there something at least slightly admirable? I know Jim Cornette used saltier terms, but I'll cool it down slightly. It's like, is it admirable at the very least that she's a bitch and she knows it and she admits it and she's upfront with it, rather than somebody who's just sort of keeps it on the down low?
No, that's the whole thing. I saw, I think you teach people how to, treat you. No, she knows she's a bitch. That's a gimme. That's a gimme. You don't have to be a bitch to me, but I see it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, no, it's one of those things, like I'm better than you. My shit don't stink. I'm a bitch. This is the way I am. But see, I'd rather someone be that way with me. I know where I stand with that person. So knowing that, it's like, okay, I already know how she is, but she's not going to treat me that way because I'm not going to treat her a certain way, and we're going to keep her professional. And that's just the way it was at that time, And I know she's had her problems over the years and things, and we all have our demons and battles and stuff that go on. But man, she had the fucking world out there, man. I mean, most downloaded and topped the world and making all most downloaded on OLL, whatever, and being on TV every week, and had it all. But man, yeah, beautiful girl, ugly heart.
She has been described more than once as a sociopath or more. It's all about her and creating the drama, and she doesn't sort of maybe, I mean, I don't know, I've never spoke to her, but she maybe not register emotions like most people would. So with that being said, does she really think she's a danger, or will her brain consistently come up with the reason why it's everybody else's fault?
No, she's like that. Whoever called her a sociopath called her, I think, titled her right. A sociopath, I don't know exactly the formal definition of it, but it's not caring for other people at all. And I think she's that way. What was her boyfriend's name? Chris what?
At the time, Chris Candido.
Candido. She didn't even care about him. I mean, she would just cuss him out in front of people, and she'd walk off, and he'd just look at guys and, he'd say, well. And I never said anything. I don't think anybody ever that I heard said anything to Chris about it, how she was making him look. But I think he had to truly be in love with that woman to put up with that crap. And I've heard so many stories about her. But the stories I've heard, sometimes you hear a story and you say, bullshit, that didn't happen. But when you heard a story about Tammy, now and knowing her past, you said, that's almost the truth slapping you in the face. Because Tammy she was capable of doing that and did it. Like having sex with other guys while he was in the other room. That's fact from what I hear. Me, I've just heard that, but I never saw that, but I've been around her enough not to even doubt it.
Here was the thing with Sonny, and I know Sonny's been around. And, again, I was in WWE at that time, and I was, pretty much straight-laced. This is a business. I'm going to treat it like a business. I ain't getting involved with that anymore. I'm tired of it. And now if this was 10 years before that and Sonny had said what she said to me, I would have been all up in that. But at this point in time, I have no interest, none whatsoever. All I want to do is make money. That's it. And I create entertainment for the fans and make money doing entertainment. And one time it was the setup during the daytime at Raw. And Mark Henry and I went and sat at the commentators table that was all set up for that evening. And we put the headphones on and we're just talking to each other. We're watching guys roll around in the ring, trying some new stuff out. We're just joking around, commentating, right? Oh, that's a really tight arm lock. He's really wrenching up on it. And we're just having a dialogue back and forth, Mark Henry and I are. And all of a sudden, the ear thing comes off my ear and it's Sonny. She's pulling the ear thing off my ear and goes, I'm into bondage. And I jumped up out of the seat, threw the headset down, and I went, whoa, that's way more than I needed to know. And Mark Henry's like, what'd she say, Val? What'd she say? And she's kind of, as she's walking away, she's looking at me, giving me that eye, you know what I mean? Like, toodaloo, as she's walking away. And I'm just like, man, the stories that I've heard about her are all true, clearly. And that was the extent of it, man. I never, it was one of those things where it was an experience to have her come up there and say that. And like I said, if it was 10 years before that, I would have gone, you're into bondage. I've heard about bondage. You want to show me what bondage is? Let's go. But at that point in time, I've already got a lady. I'm happy. I'm grinding, trying to make money. My goals are changed from before. And so when that happened, it was like, well, that was an interesting little occurrence here, but no interest whatsoever. Absolutely none. And, but yeah, she had the balls to come up to somebody she didn't know me. I literally just met her a few weeks beforehand, and we've only had a few pleasantries backstage, as we're passing. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. But to come up and just not know who I am or anything about me and pull the ear thing off and goes, I'm into bondage. Yeah, she's on another level of
Up front.
humanity, I guess. Yeah.
I bet you were happy as a one-woman chap that Sonny was fired probably just weeks afterwards. She was gone by like June, July anyway.
Yeah, she wasn't there very long. From what I understand, she was supposed to go out with, I believe, the Road Warriors to the ring, manage them, and she had a pill problem. And I guess she was all messed up. They found her backstage. From what I can remember, they found her backstage. They said, we got to get you in rehab. And from what I've been told, she refused to go to rehab and they fired her.
One of the other dark sides of the ring was Chris Candido and Tammy Sytch. This was the first episode in the run. Now, there was, for the most part, everything I knew. I've interviewed Johnny Candido a couple of times, talked to him occasionally. Yeah. And just from what you know with the lore of Chris and Tammy. But there's one thing I didn't know, and I don't know if you can speak to this, is that I think Tammy and Chris, or at least Tammy, was suspended at one point by Paul. Then when they came back, they filmed a sort of like backstage interview with Tammy, where she's talking about all the drug issues. And I remember seeing it on the documentary because I had no idea it existed. And when I saw it there, I was like, man, that's got Melanie Pillman being interviewed by Vince McMahon live on Raw a day after Brian died, sort of vibe, like really exploitative. And it just it gave me one of those sort of distasteful sort of shudders on that.
Yeah.
Do you remember that airing at the time?
I don't remember it airing again. Cause I rarely watched much television after I was in the industry, but I do remember hearing about it. Tammy, there's a dichotomy there because she was also accepted in medical school, and when she told me that, I thought, okay, it sounds like just a line, right? Because there aren't many people in wrestling have been accepted in medical school, so I would quiz her, and she knew her stuff, So, and a very intelligent young woman, obviously a beautiful young lady. And very adept at our business. And coming in at a time when, the spotlight wasn't necessarily on the divas. It was still the guys' sport. And, there was if I'm in a room with Terry Funk and Dory Funk and stuff, I'm shut up. I'm listening to these guys. And so there was a definite pecking order. And I do remember the irony of it was that there was a lot of drug usage in ECW. And I remember Paul, it was after one of my surgeries, and I was prescribed Percocets. And I took one before I went to the rings. I had surgery like a week or two before that. And he grabbed me, pulled me out to the parking lot, and sort of yelling at me, "You're the leader of the dressing room, and you're not supposed to." So-and-so's in there snorting coke. So-and-so's in there shooting up. So-and-so's in there smoking pot, doing this. I took the pill bottle. I said, I'm prescribed these, Paul. My doctor prescribed these. And, but I understood his point. I think it was his way. Paul had a strange management style. He wanted to be the boss and accept the glory, and he deserved a good chunk of it. A really, really great booker. But when there was an issue between guys, being that he was the boss of the company, he would let it fester and fester and fester and fester because he didn't want to step in there and be the bad guy and try to wrangle it out. And then he would only get involved when he absolutely had to. And then, there was an incident with me and Sam in Pittsburgh, and he made us all stay afterwards and lectured us. And then over the next few weeks, this kept building again and again and again. And there was no there was nobody, Paul not letting any of the pressure off. And, so he was a great booker, but a shitty boss, because he's the guy that I can't walk in the dressing room and say, hey, so-and-so, stop doing this or whatever. Cause they're going to, screw you, franchise. He had, and he wouldn't do it. And so there was that kind of dichotomy. Tammy was by this time becoming a bit of a loose cannon herself. I'll get back to that 1 second. The sidebar to this. With what's happened recently, I take none of the responsibility away from Tammy. But this is really the net result when you keep getting slapped on the wrist when you're doing things that are pretty illegal, drinking and driving and doing things. Ultimately, though, it was her responsibility. She's the one that made the decision to get in that car and do that. And there's part of me that I'm ferociously mad at her, for being that stupid. And at the same time, my heart breaks for her because she'd always been allowed to get away with stuff like this, in the business and then out of the business and, getting these slaps on the wrist for these DUIs. I would think if you get one DUI, you'd be, if you don't learn your lesson there, you're probably going to, get a tough lesson. Like I think she's going to, but I think ultimately what's going to hurt her is how she's responding on the internet to people. She shows no remorse, and she's telling people F you and whatever, and she can try to deflect and blame the guy. I guess somebody, again, I don't do the computer much. So
but she's not been sentenced yet either. That's the thing. She's putting all this out there and she's not been sentenced yet. She keeps on deferring.
Yes.
Yeah. Keeps on deferring the trial, which I think is, I don't know how it works in America, but I believe you can defer trials for many years. And I think the theory is that basically, you're going to serve time. So the more time you can put between the incident and then the actual trial, hopefully people forgive or forget or whatever. Is that roughly where I'm getting
sort
at
of. Yeah. There's, there's a lot of, you can't do it forever. You can't put it off forever unless you have a whole lot of money. But, I think that she's, I would prolong it as long as I could too, because I think the hammer's going to drop this time because the number of incidents and the fact that a person's dead over this. And even if the guy was doing drugs, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I've heard people have said to me that that's some of the things he said. So if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. But I don't care if the guy had just snorted a pound of cocaine. If he's sitting at a red light and his car stopped and you run your car up the backside, that probably had something to contribute. So I'll get back to the stuff with Tammy. By this time, this was becoming a big issue in ECW. There was a midpoint, and I can't specifically remember the year, probably 96, 7 into 8 somewhere, where the cliques started popping up. Sandman had his crew, me and Bam Bam, Taz and Perry, Chris, we'd all dress in our room. And there was these divides going on between. And Paul, in fairly short order, actually did come to us and say, you guys need to break this up, and so I would go and dress with these guys and Chris would go over and dress with those guys to try to get it back to that family that it had always been, that fraternity it had always been. And it worked to some degree. But there was a fight outside the arena one night because Tammy had said some things to one of the guys in the bar next door, and it turned into a riot in the front parking lot. There was a lot of that, and and the fans have heard all the stories inside the business. Chris was a very non-assertive person, and when me and Bam or whoever his friends, we'd say to him like, man, you gotta stop this. You gotta stand up to this. And he just wouldn't. He was so in love with Tammy, but they also co-enabled each other. And that's if anybody out there knows anything about drugs and addiction, that when you have two people co-enabling each other and existing with each other in their own little segment of the world, that becomes a very dangerous thing. And Chris had an extremely addictive personality. If he was working out, he's working out to the umpteenth degree. If he was taking pills, to the umpteenth degree. His matches, to the umpteenth degree. So, for 10 years, I thought for sure he's going to die from pills. Gets cleaned up, and then the cruelty there is he dies from a broken ankle, severely broken ankle.
Tammy Sytch. Now, she has pleaded no contest to DUI manslaughter charges. This is from The Observer. She issued the plea on Wednesday at Volusia County courtroom after originally having pled not guilty to all charges stemming from a fatal traffic accident in March 2022. Her trial was scheduled to begin on Monday, August 21st. According to court documents obtained by TMZ, Sytch has now pled no contest to felony DUI causing death, driving with a suspended license causing death, 2 charges of DUI with damage to property, and 4 counts of DUI with damage to a person. Sytch faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison. A sentencing hearing has yet to be scheduled. I can read a bit more afterwards, but Your immediate reaction to this? Justice is slow, isn't it? Was this some 17 months?
Okay,
after the
she's
fact?
been in jail since March of 2022.
It took her, if you'll
A
remember,
month ago.
cast your mind
It took
back.
her a month ago.
Yeah, it took her a couple of months to actually get remanded. That's the word I was trying to think of. But yeah,
Well, Tammy, I like Tammy, but she's going to, and I've said this, she's going to kill somebody, and she did. And the reason she should be put away because she will kill somebody else, or she will hurt somebody else, or she'll kill herself, which is probably I don't want to wish that on anybody, but she has to be protected from herself. And also, we got to protect people just driving around going to the store. And she knows this, and she can bitch and moan, but I don't have any sympathy for her whatsoever. Here was a guy who got up one morning, he's a grandfather, 75 years old, driving down somewhere. And all of a sudden, here comes Tammy out of the blue. What town was this in Florida? It's on the beach somewhere.
well, I think it's like Volusia County was the county where I presume it happened, or where the court was. Is that not right?
Yeah, well, yeah, Belushi. I don't know where it is exactly. Okay. But he's sitting there, and here she comes, drunker than hell or doped up or whatever, and she hits him in the back and kills him. And now she had to be going 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. And he was stopped at a traffic light. So, and if he hadn't had a traffic light, she would have went through that and could have hit somebody else. That's what prison is for. Sometimes prison is to protect people from the person they put in jail, not for their punishment, but it's to protect people. In her case, I think that's definitely what they're thinking of. They need to put her out. And if they give her 20 years, I have no problem with it. Now, I don't know how old she is. She's about 50, right?
Around that age, yes. Volusia County is also just north of Orlando, by the way.
Okay. Well, so I know it was somewhere in Florida, but I have no sympathy for, and this is not the first time. This has happened 6 or 7 other times, and I don't know why she wasn't put in jail before. So whatever happens to her, it's out of my hands, but I think she needs to get some serious time out of this. And if they just give her 10 years, I'm going to actually be disappointed, really, because 10 years, hell, she could kill a couple more people. What if in that car there'd been more than just one man? What about a father and a mother and two or three little kids in the back? She'd have killed them all. Mm-hmm. So she could have killed 5 people. So anyway, no sympathy for me from Dirty Dutch for Tammy Sytch,
yeah,
or Sonny. No sympathy here. I don't have any sympathy for drunk drivers or doped up drivers. No sympathy at all.
Francine and I were in WrestleCon, and she was texting back and forth with Tammy between fans, and and I said, she's gonna, like, horrible thing to say, but I said, she's gonna end up killing somebody. And in your wildest dreams, thinking like that's like such an impossibility, but just hopefully like give her a little smack to the head and like wake up, And she held her phone up, and the reply was, Franny just said that to her, and the reply was, I'll never let that happen. And then this happens. Again, I think shame on the powers that be in New Jersey that gave her these kid gloves treatment for whatever reason. I think it's a horrible thing. I mean, for anybody to kill somebody else, that would do me in. And thank God, with all the matches we travel, that it hasn't happened. I'm shocked that it hasn't happened more often with boys in the business.
Yeah, I didn't get along with Sonny. She didn't get along with a whole lot of people unless you could do something for her. And she's always been about her. So
you think?
No,
it was all about Sonny.
It was all. Well,
she's cooling. Sonny. She's cooling her heels right now, and
yes,
in jail.
Right. I just had a conversation with some other people about her, and it's amazing if you look at it, and I have, because man, I knew her when she was in Memphis, because her and Chris went to Memphis. That's where I first met him during one of my few stays runs there. And they were young kids, you know. I've noticed since she was like 18, 19 years old. And then when she came to Smoky Mountain, she was going to college. And Cornette saw her as this cute little girl. And oh my God, we could do something with her. And maybe, the guys would see her. And of course, pretty little girl, been told how beautiful she is her whole life. And man, she ran with it. And you got to think. And I've asked him again. I've looked back and psychoanalyzed a lot of other stuff too. When you're that young, being told how great you are all the time, or how pretty you are, and you're the most beautiful woman in the world, and you know, not everybody handles that real well. And I don't think she'll see the light of day. I mean, if you look at her record, and I said this a while back, I've said this on a few interviews that something bad is going to happen. And when you go to rehab or you get sent away, they tell you it's jails, rehab, and death.
Yeah.
There's no escape unless you, and the rehab is recovery. You never get out of recovery. You're always in recovery. And that's why you have to go to these meetings, and you have to keep your regimen up, because you have to change people, places, things. And she never did. She'd go to rehab, and I don't know if she's had 6 stents or what. And
6 stays.
I believe
rehab.
maybe 6. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it could be more. And I think I don't know facts here, but I know it's been multiple.
Well, never let facts get in the way of a good story.
I know.
Yeah, just make it up as you go.
Right. I get it. But there are some poor, unfortunate souls who just can't change. I mean, there's just, because
and she's one of them.
She's one of them. Certainly is. They have all these. If you know anything about AA and the meetings, and it's not about medication, it's about changing your attitude. It's about changing your way of life. It's about changing habits. It's about changing all these things. And she never got away from those habits, never got away from those people or places. How is she supposed to change? Nobody held her accountable. Nobody would come pick her up, say, we're going to a meeting. As much as you hate them, you're going to go and sit, and you're going to talk, and you're going to do this, because this is the only thing that's keeping you from that. If you're not here, then you're going to be there. So we're going to make sure. And nobody was doing that for her. She had nobody to do that.
Tammy's an idiot, a complete idiot. She can't help it. But she didn't mean to kill the guy, but she did. I mean, so that could be me, or it could be you, it could be your friend, it could be somebody else, it could be a kid, it could be. So why wait for her to prove you wrong, and when you could probably save somebody's life that has nothing to do with Tammy Sytch? So letting her out is like saying, okay, here, take this gun and just start shooting up in the air over in that field over there. And if she hits somebody, is that her fault because you told her to do it? Or is it her fault because she did it? So she's the one that did it. She's the one that needs to suffer.